Frieren might have just become the number one anime of all time. Now, I know when you hear something like that, you're going to immediately think, you're just biased, you're overreacting to an anime that's come out recently, and that's fine and that's fair. But I question, or I would ask you, what anime would you say is better? And here's my argument for Frieren. Frieren does everything well. It does everything amazing. There's not a single element to the anime Frieren that is done poorly or not at the top of the level, the top of the game. You know what I'm saying? One of the main critiques that I hear about Frieren is that it's boring or it's slow. Now, I don't agree with those. I don't agree with those statements at all. But I can understand somebody who might be more into action-based anime, or they're more into the entertaining value of anime, feeling like Frieren is slow or boring. I think it is neither slow or boring. In fact, with respect to the pacing in Frieren, it's some of the best pacing I've ever seen in anime. I mean, there are very, very few moments / episodes where I feel like we could have done without that. Almost everything that happens in Frieren is serving either the story or the character development or both. So I can't really understand why some people would say that it's slow, because it's not slow. I mean, they're moving. They got a lot. They covered so much in 28 episodes. And was it constantly fights? No, it wasn't that. It definitely wasn't Jujutsu Kaisen. It definitely wasn't Dragon Ball. It definitely wasn't, Naruto. There was some story. There was some story being told, but that was also the point. You know what I mean? Like, part of the message of Frieren is that pay attention to the small details. Be present today. Now, the fights in Frieren are done amazing. You could easily just love Frieren for the fights. I mean, the powers, the fights, the mages, the parties, the hero parties, they're incredible stuff. But that's not what it's about. It's a part of it though. And that's why I love it. Because if Frieren was just the kind of slice of life, day to day, be present, don't overlook the small things, then it wouldn't have been as good as it is. You need the fight, you need the tension, you need the conflict, you need the antagonists of Frieren, which were all brilliant. They were all brilliantly done. I loved every second of Frieren because, like I said before, everything works together. But again, I would ask you, okay, so we say that the pace, I believe that the pacing is perfectly done. You know what I mean? As much as anything can be perfect, I think that the pacing of Frieren was done really, really well. Another argument is that it's boring. That's a tough one because it's really hard to control what entertains somebody or what someone's going to find interesting. I feel like there was more than enough to entertain or to capture the interest of anybody interested in anime or stories or fantasy. Now, you might not be into fantasy. So, for example, no one's arguing that Game of Thrones was a bad show. Some people might have found its material problematic, and some people might have hated the ending, like me. But there's no way I could deny how good the show was. But if I'm not into if I'm not into fantasy, if I'm not into dragons, if I'm not into that type of entertainment, then there's nothing that it's going to do. Like, for example, I don't watch Star Trek. Again, I'm not in any way trying to downplay it or say that it's not good. It's just not for me. So to call something boring, I feel like is a little bit of a tricky subject. It's a little bit of a slippery slope, right? I mean, if that's your critique. And again, those two, in my opinion, seem to go hand in hand with the idea of it being slow, it being boring. Generally speaking, I would imagine that someone who thinks it's slow probably thought it was boring. And that's why they considered it to be slow. But I don't think it's boring. I think it's very interesting. In fact, just the concept itself is pretty amazing. Who thinks about what happens after everyone wins? No one thinks about that, but that's important because a lot of people think about life as a destination, when in reality, it's a series of destinations, but the majority of life happens between the destinations. So Freeren's approach and this look at like, what do you do in the in between is so dope. Now, if you can't get down with that, that's tough, man. But I think that the idea that it's slow or boring, it's not really appropriate, but everyone has the right to feel how they want to feel. Now, if we're looking at the animation, like the actual animation, it's top tier. And you would have a very, very hard time, in my opinion, finding an anime that did a better job. Maybe we can talk about like Demon Slayer. One Piece has really kicked it up a notch since episode 1015. Some of the movies like Suzume was beautifully done. What was it? Your Name was done amazing. So there are anime that have great animation, but I would say the consistency of Frieren, I mean, it'd be hard to top it. It's hard to top it. I mean, there's so many beautiful details in Frieren, like just small things, the colors that they're using, the way that they color their eyes, the way that they draw, the way that the characters are drawn. I've read the manga and I've seen the manga, and they've definitely elevated the art from the manga. And I think that that's pretty, I can't say that that's common, or I can't say that that is a regular thing, because there's definitely some some manga panels that are just breathtaking. One anime that comes to mind is One Punch Man. I mean, just absolutely amazing, breathtaking panels. One Piece has it as well. So the animation in Frieren is just done so well. The colors, the choices, the way that the fights flow. You know what I mean? Like the way that they use impact frames. It's just done really well. It's done really good. So that's a step or an argument towards Frieren. The animation, I feel like, is top 3. I think it's the best. And if you think that there's an episode or an arc that's better, I still would say that it's probably not as consistent. I mean, that was 28 episodes of absolute art in Frieren. Another thing is the stories, or the actual story itself. I mean, I just was going on about how the concept of starting at the end and then going forward, that by itself is dope. You know what I mean? Because there's a quote from Jim Rome, right? And I think that this is such a great concept. I hope more people explore this concept. And what he says is that it's not about making $1 million. It's about the person you have to become to make that million. That's what will never change. You can get money, you can lose money, you can make more money, but the person that you had to become to make that million, that's what's going to stay with you. And that's what the true value is. And so, whereas most shows or stories, I should say, are about getting to a final destination or defeating a final person, dealing with a final antagonist. And then some shows, they just kind of rinse and repeat, and they do the same thing over and over and over. And I know I've had discussions about how Dragon Ball is not formulaic or whatever. They are. Shonen is. It's like maybe either it scales and gets bigger and the stakes get higher, or they literally just do the same thing. But with Frieren, it's about who she became on the journey and seeing that new person living life. You know what I mean? And that's why it's so cool, because generally speaking, we don't really get to see people after they've achieved the level. And then what does it mean? How do they live? How did it change them? What kind of person did they have to become? What kind of person did Frieren have to become to play her part in defeating the Demon King? And after becoming that person, how is it affecting her? How is she approaching life? And it's really interesting too, because I made multiple videos on Frieren. I love Frieren. I can talk about Frieren for years, but I just love the idea of you don't get second chances, but you do get new opportunities, and you can take the lessons that you've learned and not make the same mistakes. So again, yeah, you don't get second chances, but you do have new opportunities, And those are in some ways second chances, you know? I mean, her journey that she's on now will not replace the journey that she took, you know? And again, I've said this, but I just got to stress this simple thing. Life is not one journey. Life is a series. I'm sorry. Life is not one destination. It's a series of destinations. Small destinations, big destinations. Small goals, big goals. But life, the majority of life happens in between the destinations. And that's what Frieren's about. One of my favorite episodes is the one where they were looking for the flowers. It's the whole point. It's the whole point. What is this? Fern said it so great. Why would someone with so much ability and so much power waste so much time? And to Frieren, it's kind of funny because in her mind there has to be this duality. I'm not wasting any time. I'm not wasting a lot of time. This is nothing to me. But at the same time, time is felt through her friends, through the people that she parties with. So what is it? So how do you balance that? That's something that I struggle with on a daily basis. How do I balance being present today and fully maximizing the day, but not wasting time? And I think that it's not really a waste of time if you're getting value from it. Frieren just digs deep, man. It digs deep. Understanding how they're playing with time, how things speed up and slow down, you know, how moments happen. I love how they handle the fights. The fights are, there's this build and there's this build, and then you kind of realize it's just a moment in the journey. I love it. I love Frieren. I think that the fights are top notch. The way that they're animated, the way that they're choreographed, the way that they had to have been storyboarded. I would love to see the storyboards from Frieren. They have to be amazing. They have to be impeccable. They have to be insanely good. So good. Frieren is so good. The fights are good. That's why I struggle when people say that it's boring. Did you watch the fights? Have you seen the fights? Have you seen their powers? I mean, especially when we get to like the first class mage exam. That's almost nonstop action, you know? But even within there, they slow it down. They slow it down, and they're always going back and they're always referencing the first party, Himmel, their relationship that's still blooming throughout the series. Frieren is still coming to terms with her feelings for Himmel. And that's brilliant. We got 28 episodes and we're still seeing this very gradual, subtle realization of the depth of her feelings for Himmel. And there's just so many little lessons that you hear Himmel say. And, you know, there's also, I'm loving how they chose to show the characters. So the priest is who I'm thinking of in specific. We get introduced to him. He's a drunk. He's partying. He's all these things. Then we get reintroduced to him when he's older, and he's changed, and he's taking care of Fern. And then we see another side of him where we realize that Stein, I believe it was Stein, had interacted with him earlier. It's just, you know, another thing that they do good in Frieren that I think that is probably missed by a lot of people is the whole concept of threads and how your life is happening at the same time as other people. And I don't think that we fully appreciate that, or we think about it. I mean, how could you really think about that? But like right now, other people's lives are happening at the same time as yours, and then we're constantly intertwining. And that's what happened with Frieren and her party. And they went their separate ways, and then they came back together, and now she's interacting with those threads, those different life threads, and it's just done brilliantly. The relationship between her, the relationship between Stark and his master, just her going to villages that she's been to in the past and seeing the people older. It's just, there's just so many little things that make this such a powerful story. And the message for Frieren is something that just can't be overlooked. And for me, there's plenty of messages. Don't have regrets. Regrets are pointless. You can't do anything with the regret. You can take the lesson, you can learn from it, and you can live better now. Not tomorrow, now. Live better now. If you spent time with people and you completely took them for granted and you did not appreciate them, the next time you get an opportunity to have somebody in your life in a close way, appreciate them. Take the time to appreciate them. It's just that simple. Another one is you don't have second chances. Right? I mean, again, it might sound a little bit confusing as to what I'm saying. I'm saying that you don't get second chances with people. What the time you have with them is the time you have with them. Now you get new people and new opportunities. Like, so for example, let's say you had a job, right? And you worked this job, it was a little hard, it was a little frustrating, but then you lose the job. I'll give an example. I was working at a production company, and it was okay. It was fun, but it was a little bit hard. But then COVID happened. And after that, it went away. And then after it went away, I realized how much fun it was working at that job and how much fun I had with the people there. But that job's gone. It's never coming back. Maybe I'll get an opportunity to work with them in a different way, but it won't be that. And that's the point of Frieren. Once the time is gone, once the people are gone, they're gone. And that's another thing too. What does it mean to be Frieren? To outlive almost everybody? That's such a heavy, and so there's two approaches to life. The approach that Frieren was taking initially, where she just didn't really make any serious friendships or have like feelings for anybody because, they're passing. They're passing. They're constantly coming and going. Or, which is a little bit harder, you still decide to make relationships, make bonds with people and appreciate them. And yes, you're going to have to deal with the fact that they're going to be coming and going. But at the same time, if you remember them, like we're seeing this now, memories don't go. They never go away. The time you spent with somebody will always live on. So it's important to make memories. Otherwise, what are you doing? If you're not making memories, if you're not living your life, what's the point? Frieren is a powerful story with a powerful message. Done brilliantly. Amazing animation, amazing characters. The development of all the characters has been amazing, and we're just getting started. We're just getting started. The worlds have been amazing. The places they've stopped have been amazing. The struggles, the battles, the fights, the music has been amazing. There really isn't anything that I can point to that I think Frieren does bad. If you find it to be boring, that's okay. If you find it to be slow, I get it. Not everything is going to be for everyone. But I would highly recommend you checking out Frieren one more time. Because I promise you, I believe not only is Frieren the best anime of 2023, it's possibly the best anime of all time. It's the only anime that I can think about that you could possibly compare it to would be Full Metal Alchemist. And I feel like Full Metal Alchemist is an anime where the story is amazing. The power system is amazing. The message of Full Metal Alchemist is done great. But I think Frieren's better. In fact, we know that on the My Anime list, it surpassed Full Metal Alchemist. And I think it's rightfully so. I think that you don't have to put Frieren as your favorite anime. And that's another thing too. The best anime doesn't have to be your favorite. Just like with a basketball team, the best basketball team doesn't have to be your favorite. You can root for whatever you want to root for. Like I'm still slightly leaning towards having One Piece stay my favorite anime because it's fun for me. It gives what Frieren gives as well, but Frieren does it better. But it doesn't matter. Your favorite doesn't have to be the best. I mean, I don't even know if that is. I didn't really even think about that until I started thinking about, do I need to change Frieren to my top anime? And I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I can have it as my number 2 or number 3 because it's good. It's great. I think it's the best anime. I think Frieren changed anime. I think the anime will be better because of how Frieren happened. The quality, it raised the bar for anyone that wants to make anime. I think that there will be before. I mean, anime as a whole has just been getting better and better and better. Demon Slayer, One Piece is now insane. Jujutsu Kaisen was absolutely insane this year. So anime is just getting better, period. And there'll be new stories and there'll be better stories. I mean, I thought 2022 was an amazing year for anime. And in 2023, I mean, good Lord. And we're off to a bang on 2024. So I think the anime will keep going and keep improving and keep getting better. But as of now, I think that Frieren is currently peak. That is the peak. There is no level higher than Frieren anime. Now, whether you think it's the absolute highest, that's, again, I think that's a debate. Everyone can debate. But I think that it easily clears something like Attack on Titan, which has lots of flaws. I think that it easily clears, I don't say easily, I think it clears Full Metal Alchemist, because I think that there still are some small issues with Full Metal Alchemist, not many. Gosh, but I love Full Metal Alchemist. Don't get me started on that. I should make a video on Full Metal Alchemist. But Frieren, yeah. Characters, world, animation, music, voice acting, talent, story, pacing, fights, powers, abilities, relationships between characters. I mean, you know what I mean? If you got something, I'd love to hear it. If you got something, I'd love to hear it. But I'm not seeing anything beating Frieren. So anyway, those are my thoughts on why I believe that Frieren is the best. And if you want to see more, check out my channel. Be sure to sub.